Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the May edition of our Startup Resources series. We have a big crowd this morning, which I am really excited about. Welcome, everyone. If you are a series regular, we welcome you back. And if you are new to the Startup Resources series, thank you for joining us this morning. I'm Lisa Bajornas. I'm Executive Director of our Kentucky Innovation Hubs with KSTC, and of course, in partnership with our friends over at the Cabinet for Economic Development, specifically KY Innovation. We are welcome you all and happy to have this particular topic today. So here's a little rundown of our agenda. Typically, we have a cabinet update from David Brock. However, today he's not able to join us. So we are going to jump very quickly into today's topic, and this is going to be a good one, all about solution visualization. And we will learn what that is and how that in particular can help your startup founders and those that you work with. We are going to have a hub highlight today from our friends over at Awesome Inc. And then I do have a rundown of announcements. And I do want to remind everyone at any time, if you have a question, go ahead and drop that in the chat. I'll facilitate that for our speaker and time permitting. So we are happy to do that. Before we jump right into it, I want to make sure that you all are aware, if you ever are in need of getting back to a previous startup resource webinar that we have held in the past, we do keep a library of all of those. Just head on over to kstc.com. You'll see a drop-down menu, access the Our Initiatives menu, and go ahead and click on Kentucky Innovation Hubs. You'll scroll down that page and you'll see monthly startup series webinars. Click on that and you'll see exactly the graphic that's to the right, and you can go back to any of those topics. You'll see the topics listed and the recording, and you are welcome to go back to those anytime. We do post these also to our Slack channel, and you receive them in the follow-up email that Christine McNeil sends to each of you. So I wanted to be sure that you knew we do keep that library of all of our past program speakers and topics. So it's all there. It's all good. And with that, I'm going to skip right over our cabinet update, and we're going to jump right into it. So this is Paul McCrorey. He is founder of McCrorey Digital, and today's topic is great. We're going to talk about assisting our startup clients with driving their development, their funding activities, and their sales through something called solution visualization. I'm going to stop sharing so that Paul can go ahead and come up. Good morning, Paul.
Hey,
and
good
if
morning.
you've got
Good morning,
a
everybody.
presentation you want to share, you go ahead and do that while I do a short introduction here. So all of you in roles of supporting entrepreneurs, whether you're an innovation hub, whether you are an entrepreneurial support organization, we know that founders have many, many ideas, right? The ideas are not necessarily the problem. It's being able to effectively translate those ideas into what that potential solution could look like and have it be a viable solution, right? That is where some difficulty can sometimes happen. So founders know what they're building, of course, in their heads, but when it comes time to pitch that solution, and that means whether they're pitching to their development team, whether they're pitching that to investors, whether they're pitching that to potential customers, it may just absolutely fall flat. You see those faces, like, what? I don't really get it. I'm not sure what you're trying to build here. And that can be very frustrating for our startup clients. And that is not a good thing. So I've had a chance to chat with Paul. So I have learned a great deal about his ability to visualize the storytelling of what it is a startup is trying to convey for numerous different audiences. And as you know, as they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And this is very true, right? Paul is a really talented storyteller, visualist, all these great things that I could tell you about him. And he has really, I think, found a striking solution to help with your startups who may be having this difficulty and how to translate that into some really excellent opportunities and results, whether that's getting the right product developed, getting investors to invest, or customers to get excited about the prospect that's in front of them. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Paul, who's going to talk to us about the visual storytelling for startups.
Hey, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm making sure my mic's working. Okay, great. So yeah, hey, I'm really glad to be here. I am Paul McCrorey. I'm an engineer actually by degree, but founder of McCrorey Digital. I've been building award-winning 3D product visualizations for over 15 years. But much of my work has been on the technical side. So working with teams that are launching deep tech or complex hardware and products that are tough to explain. That's kind of where my niche has been. But after years of sitting in rooms with these founders and engineers and marketers and trying to get them all on the same page, I realized something. Really, the challenge wasn't the product. Like Lisa said, everyone that's on the product team understands the product. It's really the translation of that to other stakeholders. So I made a shift here recently, and I've built this product called Visual Fusion, which is really all about helping visionaries and founders distill down their complex product into a compelling visual that resonates with who they're trying to talk to, with their target audiences. And it's not necessarily flashy graphics. It can be, and it's not really about design, although I love design and design is super important. But what we're talking about is visuals that will create clarity, which is, my wife and I always say, clarity over agreement, right? Understanding clarity is the key. And then from there, we can build alignment. And from that point, you can generate momentum. So that's really what today I'm going to talk to you about. I'm going to give you a little bit of background into visuals. Then I'm going to show you some examples of what that looks like and what those mean, a variety of examples, actually. Then I'll walk through kind of the process I go through to do it. And, it's one way to do it. And hopefully it'll shed some light for you, and maybe it'll help you. And then what I'm going to do is summarize all that in a cheat sheet for you. I think that Lisa was going to put in your resource center. So with that, I'll get started. So we all know this instinctively. We know that visuals, like Lisa said, are, one picture is worth 1,000 words. People remember what they see more than what they hear. Visuals, they land faster, they stick longer. They get passed around, right? Memes and all the things. But you can dig into these stats later. But that is really the core truth of what I'm basing everything on. And you've probably seen this as well. Founders that keep explaining the idea over and over, and the team doesn't get it still. Their presentation decks are super long and super detailed and bunches of spreadsheets. And everyone's kind of nodding, like, okay, yeah, maybe hopefully to get this over with, but no one's really on the same page. So that's usually the moment that a visual is needed to unlock things. And that's kind of what I call this aha moment. That's where everyone says, okay, now I see it. Now I'm on the same page. That this is the moment that changes everything, really. And I personally live for that moment. I don't know why, but I really love to see that. I love to see when people get that aha moment. So I know we have some ESOs on here, and I've made this presentation really with you guys in mind, because you work with startups all the time and advising them on various needs through the process. So I thought I'm going to put this together, and basically put together some things for you to listen for, to know when a project could really benefit from a visual. So if you're seeing this stuff like long explanations or confused teams or overloaded decks, it's really a good sign that a visual can bring clarity fast. So the next few slides, I'll show you some examples at different levels of fidelity, some that are low fidelity, high, medium, and high. And really, once again, this isn't about polish. It's not an art project. It's really about how can you get your target to understand. So this one's kind of a funny one. This sketch, it looks rough because it is rough, but it does communicate this concept fast. And so this is actually a buddy of mine, one of the first ones I did, and in Visual Fusion, that is. And so it's this top dollar auto advisors. And basically, he gets you a maximum profit on your vehicle, right? With the same convenience that you would if you trade it in. Basically you call him and he'll handle the rest of the things for you. Well, we've all had the experience, right? A dealership it. You're like, well, they're going to lowball me and then they're going to flip it over and sell it for a premium price to somebody else. Sure, I could try to do it, but it's just inconvenient. So this one is, hey, he's going to take the convenience, right? And give you basically the same convenience, but you still get the top dollar. So once again, this sketch shows how this founder will meet customer demand with a unique service. And one glance at this, and you really get what he's saying, what he's offering. This one, again, not fancy, although this product is amazing. I'm trying not to talk about the products today because but I do love these products. But this one here was used in a real meeting last week in DC. And this is about a folding shipping container from a company called Staxon. I've done quite a bit of work with them in the past. But this sketch doesn't really talk much about the tech, although the tech is super cool. It talks really about the benefit. Okay, so the benefit is what the folks in DC needed to see. They don't care how this thing folds up. So they were able to look at this and see right away. But the funny thing about this is the implications for logistics on this product are enormous, and they're very difficult for people to really understand. Even me, who I've been in this for quite a while with these folks, it's hard to understand how big of a deal this is. And so we had to break it down to, this right here, this is 5 containers that folds into one. And you have to let that soak a little bit. And then you can say, well, what that really means, it's 5 trucks down to 1 truck on the road. And then, to be honest, there's a whole nother layer of talking about that needs to be explained. Sometimes, like I said, these things have to be broken down into simple so that people can really get it. But then you have to continue to build on that. That's where you get this alignment and then momentum. So the next one is this one's pretty complicated. I'll call this a medium fidelity. So it looks a little cleaner. It's more polished. But this one, kind of had to be more polished. This concept is pretty complicated. It took me a while to really understand this one, but it is a game changer, this particular product. And I'll talk about the product just for a second. But what you have here is encryption. You've heard of encryption at rest and data encryption in transit. I think most of us maybe understand that, but what this company does that's super crazy unique is they do encryption in use. So there's a service provider that can work on data and not see the data. So it's like, what in the world? So we used a metaphor here to show robots working on these sealed packages, thinking of them as, whether they're encrypted. But the other thing that you'll see here is they're generating new data out of that encrypted data that's still encrypted. And as you get back to this particular data source, those folks that need to see the data can see the data. However, the folks down here do not have access to the data, yet they're able to work on it. So this is, once again, a very complicated story to tell. Probably we'll end up doing an animation for these folks, but at this point, this was one of their key images on their website and to their stakeholders. This one is one of my favorites. This is a company called Spark 9. And I showed this to the client after our $1 million sketch session with them. And they said, after 10 years of being in business, this is the first time that really someone nailed what they do in one image. And what they do is they test ad concepts fast across multiple targets and multiple channels so that their client will find out what works for them before they spend, big dollars. And this image here shows, and you can think about all these little cross sections here are different example targets. So for example, one could be grandmothers who like Nike shoes, one could be teenagers who love cross stitch or whatever. And so you send, basically you can imagine just a field of points dropping down on this grid. And then as people respond to that, whether they scroll past it, which is good, you can learn a negative response, or whether they hit into it or select into it, you can see this shows where the height of activity is. So you may have thought that it was grandmothers who like Nike shoes was your target, but it turns out it's teenagers who love cross stitch. And so then you can take, it's basically like, think of it like almost like a bass, like a fishing guide at a lake, and they tell you right where the bass are and right what lure to use. So that's what this graphic showed for them. And so we're really still in the process of building this out. This is pretty fresh, and this is a concept sketch that we did for them. And we also, out of the clarity report we built, now we're going to work with them to deploy this concept and make it more refined and across a number of their channels to help explain their benefit. So this is a more high fidelity visual. This is actually an agitator in a washing machine. And I've got a video I'm going to play. I don't know that the audio will come across, so I'll just turn it down and speak over top of it. So let me make sure it's muted. I'll turn it down. So this particular product is as I said, an agitator, collapsible agitator. And so what we're trying to do here is set context, always set context for folks. Where are we at? Okay, we're in a washing machine, and dig down deeper. Now we're into this particular product itself. So we're going to show, and this is a little more of a dramatic type visual that we built into this one here. So I always try to make products look overly dramatic at times, and probably too dramatic, but anyway, it's fun. And so you're actually getting a real beauty shot of this thing in action, and you'll see kind of how it looks, kind of how it works. And the other part of this is this thing called a power wave, which actually shoots water up into the clothes as it's rotating. So there was two features we were demonstrating here in this video. And a pretty cool feature too is there's a vortex that happens in here, and as you change telescope, move the telescope down, it actually reverses that vortex. And so for whatever reason, that's what they wanted to show, but it's not, it came out pretty cool. But what we're trying to do is show the benefits here, as well as understand the technology. So this once again is a very high fidelity visual. And so the two purposes here were to show the telescoping agitator and the power wave components at the bottom. And once again, it's really about, how does this technology benefit the end user? Here's another pretty cool one here. This one I did for 3M, and I'm going to show you the video in a second. But this, just honestly, all the cool stuff that I'm going to show you, honestly, this image right here, this little simple sketch really explains what this is, especially if you're a person in this market, right? This basically takes fiber optic and expands it out larger so that it's not susceptible to dust particles. So if you see right here in the first part of the video, you'll see a dust particle basically choke off the light. And then you'll see after that, kind of how what their solution was. So let me get that video pulled up. I wish you could hear the music on this one, because it's pretty cool songs. But so yeah, here's your first opening scene, and once again, we try to do things somewhat dramatic, but also really just tell the story. Here's the dust particle, and then you'll see that expand right there. That's the expanded beam. So essentially, you don't know what you're looking at yet, but you get kind of almost a subliminal message out of the deal. So then we're going to break down the part. Here's where we get literally down into the piece and showing, okay, see how the expanded beam, there's no dust particles that can basically stop that beam. So that's a really very quick and easy, very, very clear and succinct visual on the technology. And that's kind of what as we get into this later, I want you to understand. Okay. So now I want to talk a little bit about the process here and how we create these images. And so there's some key elements that we need to get to produce an image that clicks. This slide here is really to help orient you to kind of how I view the task. Essentially, the client or a founder or the person with the product or idea or solution, they're the ones looking to connect to their target audience. Okay, so those are kind of key terms that I use all the time. And the target could be, like Lisa said earlier, it could be their team, it could be a potential customer, it could be an investor. But it's going to be, there's a specific person or type of person we're trying to get to. So my huge push for me is always to find what is that target's point of view of the real problem that they're dealing with. What's their frustrations? What's their pain points? What's their frame of reference, right? It's a critical important. So that's kind of what the rest of this talk is going to be oriented towards. So the frame of reference, basically, how did they see the world? What do they believe? What have they been burned by? What language do they use? How do they speak about their problem? And this is where I think the ESOs can really come in and listen for things. You can listen for specific jargon that doesn't match their audience, like things that won't connect with their audience, long explanations of how it works, and versus why it matters. So in order to build a visual that connects, you really have to start from here, their frame of reference. Then the next part, as I said earlier in that 3M video, is really the trick here is I'm an engineer. I know I've got some patents. I know we get excited about our stuff, and it's the coolest thing ever. A lot of times, however, we start off with a solution versus finding out the real problem, right? So that's a challenge. But what we want to do in this case is to really get a clean, simple visual concept of the technology. We're always excited about what makes our products cool, but the audience doesn't really care about that, right? They don't care how this container folds. They just don't. And this is not a rude thing. This is just truth, right? They're doing their thing. They're about their life. They're worried about their problem. So we need to find out, how does this make their life easier? How does it solve their problem in their language? Oftentimes in meetings, learning about the technology, I can sometimes come across a little bit rude and say, hey, so what? Like, why do I care about this technology? What really matters, to the target? And then we just really boil it down into the simple essence. And this is the essence of the technologies where clarity really lives. The next ingredient, if possible, sometimes it's not possible, but it's a metaphor. And so a metaphor is very powerful because a metaphor is something that can really collapse complexity. It can really connect unfamiliar things. That's an unfamiliar thing to something that we get, right? So if you can attach something unfamiliar, and almost all the things you're going to do are unfamiliar because you're doing something new, right? It's innovation and it's a new product. So it's critical that we connect it to something that someone already gets. And it really doesn't have to be clever. It just has to be true. It has to be, it has to be true. It's something that people can connect with. And honestly, I do struggle sometimes personally with not, trying to make it too clever, right? Because you want it to be cool as well. But it's really not about that. It's about getting the message across. I keep going back to clarity. So what it comes down to, it's the difference between the founder saying it's complicated and an investor saying, oh, you mean like a conductor in an orchestra? Okay, I get that. So, that's what we're aiming for. And it doesn't diminish your product as well. It's really a bridge to help them come to where, to understand the product. Here's some kind of examples of metaphors, that you guys can look at later. I'm going to blow through this, but, essentially, once again, it's about helping people understand, connecting to something familiar. Now, this one here may be a little controversial. I'll see how this goes with you. And so people buy on emotion. And I've just read this book this year, Think Fast and Think Slow. And I was a little offended when I read it because it's like, hey, I think with logic, I'm an engineer. But it really, the truth is we buy on emotion, then we justify with logic. I remember, years ago, I talked my wife into let me get a motorcycle, and there wasn't a lot of logic involved in me getting that. So people buy on emotion and they justify with logic. And I know some of you are thinking, hey, have you ever talked to a venture capitalist or an investor? Emotions are not necessarily exactly their thing. Well, that's fair. I get it. But the truth is they're still human, right? And if you put something in front of them that makes them instantly, get it, or that it looks sharp, and they're more likely to say, okay, this is interesting, let's keep going. But the opposite is if you put something generic or vague or off target, now you're really asking them to come over to you. You're asking them to do a lot, to dig, to connect dots on their own. We don't want them connecting dots. We want to connect dots for them, because you're hope they'll be generous, and they got lots going. They got pitches coming at them all the time. So you're not helping them, right? We need to help them understand. We need to make it easy. We need to make it resonate. Once again, this is not about impressing with art. It's about getting them to lean in and to do it fast and quick. But this Daniel Kahneman is the one who wrote that book. His research does shows that even trained professionals use fast, intuitive judgments, then backfill with reasoning. So the point isn't that venture capitalists are emotional buyers. It's that really every human, even the most analytical ones, process emotion first and logic second. This is a powerful tool. Either way, agree or disagree, this is a powerful tool to have in your back pocket to remember that emotion is a big, big part of this. Okay, so here's kind of how we bring all that together. And we're almost done. I think I'm going pretty fast, but we're almost done here. So I'm sure we'll have some questions and we can take those. But the synthesis process, this is what we're doing in the background as we're capturing all this information, right? Their frame of reference, this emotional tension, what's their frustration, what words are they using, can we really get to their fears, honestly, and desires, because that helps inform all of this. Back to the, getting the tech essence, the simplest expression of that. And then if we can connect it into a metaphor, then to me, this is the framework that I want to build an image off of. And so it's not just, as you can see, it's not just sketching and drawing something. There's quite a bit of thought that goes into this. And I call this, this fusion point where this insight and expression align. But really, this is really all well and good, except for, as an engineer, I do like to get a closed loop on this. We need feedback, right? I need to know, I went through this process, did this work? And by the way, if it didn't work, it's not a failure, it's feedback, right? Confusion is data, and you can use that to iterate and make, it's the old fail fast type of thing here. So you want to try these out on your friends or a friendly audience to kind of see, is this resonating? Are you getting this? It'll tell us where the message is off and then how we need to refine it. Right, because as I put down here, they aren't just communication tools, they're also diagnostic tools. So, that's another facet to really, really think about with your visuals. So when do visuals really help? If the founder is stuck, if people keep saying, what does this actually do? If there's misalignment in the team, and sometimes that can be disguised. A lot of us, if we're confused, a lot of us don't raise our hand and say, hey, wait, can you please can you dumb that down for me, right? That's a little hard for us to say. So sometimes the misalignment in the team is tricky, but it's important to know that that is a telltale sign. If your team isn't aligned, right, then how are you going to move forward here? And if you're not going to move forward very efficiently. So that's when you can say a visual can unlock momentum. And I do have a cheat sheet I'll show you here in a minute to kind of help spot those moments. So really, kind of to sum all this up, what we're really trying to do, once again, is unlock clarity. Clarity is the basis for everything. It gets us all on the same page. And we don't necessarily even have to agree, like I said, but clarity is key. And then if you have clarity, that will build alignment, and alignment, then you can start to build momentum. And once again, this is not an art project. It's really about helping founders kind of get out of their own head and into the world, really, right? So that's kind of sums up this presentation today. I hope, that it's made some sense. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know it's kind of there's a lot of threw at you pretty quickly, but hopefully you've learned a little bit about when to use visuals, and even really, how to do some of that work yourself, because this doesn't have to be art. It really doesn't. It just needs to be build clarity. So anyway, let me show you the cheat sheet I've built here. And so basically this cheat sheet is a summary of the talk: find the targets, frame of reference, boil down the tech, choose a metaphor, spark emotion, synthesize it all, use a visual as a feedback tool. And then here's situations where, it's going to help the most, and so forth. So hopefully this will be something that will be helpful to the group.
Oh, Paul, this is just absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for specifically keeping this audience top of mind in terms of who you were addressing as we work with startup founders, but especially the way that you have given us several examples to illustrate a more complex or more technical or detailed solution a founder may have, and how to interpret or translate that into something very simple, very elegant. We all want our founders to get to that aha moment faster rather than later, because that can certainly mean the difference between building the right solution, being able to get that next round of investment, being able to close that deal with that potential customer. And as you said, then that's where any of our startups begin to really build momentum. So as a resource, this is just so significant as another, tool for us to consider. And particularly where you have highlighted for us, what should we be looking for in terms of the telltale signs this founder is struggling with how to convey their particular solution that we know they're in love with, but if they can't, communicate that, doesn't matter, right? We've got to be able to hone in on how this solves the customer or whoever their audience is, the particular problem that exists in their industry. Having the cheat sheet is going to be great. So we will take Paul's presentation and we're going to do a bunch of things with it. We're going to post it to our Slack. For those of you that are members of our Slack channel, you're all welcome. We're going to go ahead and send this around to everybody that's on our email distribution list. And we will also save this presentation over on the kstc.com website under Innovation Hubs in our library of Startup Resource Series webinars. So lots of ways to go back to this. And we will also get a PDF of the cheat sheet, which will be very helpful. And for our hubs, we'll put this in our resources toolkit as well. So lots of channels and paths to get back to this information. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise, your passion, certainly your capabilities, illustrating some great examples and exactly what we should be looking for, of course, to help our startups. We always want them to be successful, to be able to advance their business. Thank you so much. And I'm just looking in the chat. You're getting lots of love. Lots of love,
Great,
compliments. Thank you. This was very helpful. Folks are looking forward to getting a chance to go back and kind of digest this even further. I don't really see any questions, so I feel like you've hit the mark yourself. This is a great help, and certainly a true pain point that we all deal with in supporting our founders. So
thanks so
Paul,
much.
thank you again so very much. We appreciate your time and your expertise.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Let's see. Now, very quickly, we will come back. There we go. It is certainly my pleasure as we move into our hub highlight. We have Awesome Inc. with us today, represented by Garrett Fahrbach, who is director there. And they represent 29 counties in and around the Lexington area. So a large service area. And Garrett is here and going to give us the latest and greatest that is happening over at Awesome Inc. Hi, Garrett.
Hey, Lisa, I'm going to multitask and throw up the slides we're going to share
Yep,
today. Making sure
perfect.
you can see those.
It's coming up. We're waiting. You started your screen share. We have a
Okay,
sliver.
can you see this now?
Now we can. There we go.
Okay, interesting. Okay, well, I'm gonna do my best. Looks like I can't see my notes, but we've got plenty to share. So, Lisa, this one is actually tailored from our last call. So I know over the past fiscal year, whenever we've had either the hub highlights and we've spoken before, when we've had our quarterly webinars with this audience, that we've highlighted McKinsey and some of the universities that we partner with. And from when we spoke, I think a week or two ago, there were a couple of things that you said, I wish you guys would share this, or I didn't know this. So I figured for chiming in maybe once a month, once a quarter, that might not give the full picture of what we've been able to accomplish and work over the last, really the last year. So I wanted to dive into a bit more and share that. So this is probably a familiar slide people have seen, but to give some context, Mackenzie Haynes joined the Awesome Inc. team, I believe, going on 5 years ago. And when she joined, she was actually a career coach that was assisting our Awesome Inc. U bootcamp program. So her background was in academia, specifically with Midway University. When we got connected, and she there was helping college students transition to the real world. She started working with our team, was specifically helping the boot camp students, so people who quit their job in whatever background to learn how to become a software developer. She was helping them transition. And so as that has shifted, we sunsetted some of the programs with our Awesome IQ program. She was a great fit, a natural fit for stepping into, again, working with college students, focusing more on the entrepreneurial nature. So shifted her from director of Awesome IQ to partnerships manager. And you're going to see a lot of slides, a lot of names, a lot of universities coming up for the next handful of slides. I'm not going to read everything off. This is to maybe help portray a better picture of how McKinsey, Kevin, a couple of other folks in our team, we've been able to be boots on the ground, going and talking to different universities. So when we, like all the other innovation hubs on here, applied for the RFP and we were talking about the scope of our work, one of the things that we knew is that there's been this constant push and pull for universities wanting to be very entrepreneurial. And a university versus an entrepreneur group, they just have a different mindset, a different swagger, a different speed at which they can work. And so for us, this was a list of schools that were around the service counties that we serve, the service areas that we serve. And again, our goal was to get into a handful of them that maybe we either had some lukewarm relationships with, or maybe we were a connection away from somebody. But we quickly saw that there was a larger need and a larger desire for a lot of these different either business colleges or groups to say, actually, no, students want to start entrepreneurial things. We just maybe don't have the resources or the team to guide us. So again, this was the handful of schools that we already had probably some warm relationships with. And we either, like this top line says, we either started, launched, or maybe added some new support, a new backing system might be the best way to say it, for a handful of these universities. So fast forward, and again, phase one, we quickly realized that a lot of students, they get excited because they go to school to hopefully learn for the rest of their life a skill set, what they want to apply. And again, we have 2 lists currently of e-clubs that we either launched, restarted, put a little more emphasis, a little more resources into, and then a handful of e-clubs, again, within our surrounding service areas that we're having discussions with to see if it's a best fit, or even encouraging maybe some cross collaboration between schools. So this next slide is going to be a bit more of a timeline for how these panned out. So again, UK almost feels like it's in our backyard. I can walk there in 10 minutes from where Awesome Inc. is downtown. If people don't know, some of the co-founders of Awesome Inc. actually launched the e-club at UK back in the early 2000s. I'm not going to say what year because they want to be dated, but they were, them and Dr. Walcott, engineering professor at UK, started some of the first e-clubs. And it was something that's always had some momentum. It'll catch on. We've had awesome students. I know a number of us in this call have probably known George Destin Bell. who is a success story for the state of Kentucky student, started a couple businesses. One finally went on Shark Tank last year and just had a tremendous amount of success. But he's been the kind of person that we want to identify at a number of colleges and figure out how do we find those students, back them, and then send them off well so they create more of a ripple effect so people can catch the understanding of, oh, this guy or this girl can do this. I can probably do the same thing. So this was last fall, UK already had that. Heading into last winter, we had a couple really specific connections at Transy, at Asbury, and Berea. And I'm going to pepper in some of those relationships throughout the next handful of slides as well. But just for the sake of time, I want to keep going on with this timeline. Spread out a little further, maybe from where we usually have some of the relationships into Richmond, Madison County, and Lindsey Wilson. And I know that for some of our efforts, we've been passing along to the cabinet, specifically how we've worked with some of these different schools and what we've been able to share with them. And then coming towards the finish line, I think the college semester just wrapped up a few weeks ago, but there were a handful of universities that it was coming down to the wire because, again, the pace at which organizations like ours and some of the other ESOs on here moves much more rapidly than universities that have to get this approved and talk to this chair and, okay, you're not the right person. We got to find someone in the department. So some of these relationships we are literally started last fall, and it just came about finding the right person, which was a long process. So that said, here's a slide where I'm going to break down a couple of wins, and then I have a few things to showcase on a few other slides. So Mackenzie is an absolute rock star, and she realized that a lot of these students who are hungry for leadership support, maybe learning things that school is not teaching them from application, started I think it's the first Friday of every month, just a monthly meeting for students all in all these different schools, sometimes virtual, sometimes out of Awesome Inc. So we have students driving in from Berea, coming from Transy, coming from Georgetown, coming from Asbury. And so it's just equipping the next generation, because we realize those will be the next entrepreneurs, hopefully on these kinds of calls in the next 5 to 10 years. And then I'm just going to pick out a couple that stand out. We had a really unique partnership with Transylvania. And again, that relationship with Awesome Inc. dates probably back to at least 2017, when I know that the Governor's School for Entrepreneurs used to be at Transy. Fast forward a couple of years, they built a building, the Center for Entrepreneurship, that officially launched this past spring. We've worked with their school as they try to find a unique role for someone on staff to be both professor, lead some of the entrepreneurial initiatives. Well, this past fall, Caitlin Query, who's a local entrepreneur, that's a big thing, a local entrepreneur stepping into a role that's supposed to be entrepreneurial, so someone can teach from their experience. She's done phenomenal work, and so we've been able to work really well with her and back the resources, and we had a really unique partnership that allowed for Transy to equip all students at the entire school with the 2 volumes of Unbridled Spirit, which are the stories of the Kentucky Entrepreneur Hall of Fame inductees, which I know we highlighted before, but again, a school of about, I think, 1,000 students overall, getting 39 success stories of people who either are from Kentucky or have strong ties, that are the end all be all, the shining example. That is really cool, because their school is, and we've worked with their president, Brian Lewis, as well, their school was specifically focusing on leading some entrepreneurial efforts to make Transy one of the first liberal arts schools that has a driving factor with entrepreneurship a part of their curriculum. And again, that's a larger thing they're trying to accomplish. We're just a little pin in their story, but it's been really sweet. Next couple ones I'll blitz through. Startup Weekend, it's a really unique event that we encourage a lot of professors that we have relationships with to maybe forego their finals. So a test, a paper, something from our perspective that they prepare and study for, and then maybe 3 weeks after they do it, it hasn't affected them, where this is an experience that people can realize, maybe I'm good at this, maybe I could start my own business. And this just gives them a foretaste of what it could be. So we had students from Transy, Asbury, Berea, hunker down at Awesome Inc. for a weekend, which was really cool. And so these are some of the students from UK and from Transy and Berea that all were on a team together. Next couple ones that really stood out to me, and then I'll wrap up with a few pictures of different events I'll show you. That we had our Fellowship Demo Day, which is a showcase for our organization to highlight entrepreneurs we're working with. We had a group from University of Pikeville that they're trying to start an e-club, that they all came up and they spent the day with us to help show students, hey, these adults, these could be you guys in a couple of years. So learn from them, go talk to them. They're the MVPs of today, or the VIPs. see if you can connect with them. And as you're wrapping up school, could you potentially start a business and see yourself doing what they're doing? And the last one, Lisa, I almost want to put myself on mute and have you promote it because you were elated. But one of our connections at at Asbury University brought in Moses Lowe to lead a fireside chat. And I admittedly did not know Moses Lowe about 2 months ago. But if you didn't know, Moses Lowe is the founder of Zendit, which from his fireside chat, essentially he said in the other portion of the world, the southeastern part of Asia and that region of Indonesia, the Philippines, a lot of people over there did not use digital apps. So his company essentially built Venmo for an entire portion of the world that's larger than America. And so very humble guy, just got to share his entrepreneurial grit. And it was both like an encouragement and a gut punch in the same session because he just was like, oh yeah, I figured it out. No ifs, ands, or buts. And so the fact that we had a billionaire entrepreneur, a unicorn status entrepreneur at our space with college students there, was just a really special opportunity. And then he was a judge for that 5 Across event. So that said, I am wrapping up here. A couple events that we had highlighting our Transy book launch. You can see the magnitude of thousands of books in their new space with our Brian, CEO of Awesome Inc., and their Brian, the president, and some of the students that we're working with. Fast forward to another couple of university wins, helping launch e-clubs at Lindsey Wilson and both campuses of Campbellsville University, so in Harrodsburg and in Campbellsville as well. And then I think last 2 things here. We have upcoming events. We have 5 Across June 25th. Reason we're talking about this has all been catered around student entrepreneurs. We're gonna have 190 GSE students present at this event. So again, getting students even earlier in this potential pipeline. And then a couple of the folks that were in this past event were students. One was a UofL student, one used to be at WKU. And then really exciting. And then all that to culminate that everyone on this call, you're welcome to join us for August 1st through 3rd, which is our annual Startup Summer Retreat. And the whole goal is to help younger entrepreneurs, local entrepreneurs, mentors, investors, all gather and iron sharpen iron, help equip one another. So just a great about 48 hours to slow down, unplug, make connections, and hopefully on the back end of that retreat, you have new business partners, you have new customers, people within your city that you've met you can bounce ideas off of. So I am pretty sure I'm over on time, and I'm gonna say that's it for me. If you have any questions, I will drop my email in the chat. And Lisa, thanks for the time and letting me get to share what we've been working on.
Yes, thank you so much, Garrett. We do have one specific question for you, if you can hang on. We have a question. Are your clubs open for external attendees, virtual or in-person? Example is given from the University of Louisville.
Yeah, good question. I can ask. I would imagine probably yes. A lot of people want either encouragement or other resources, but I know sometimes with different university policy and things that we've agreed to, setting some of these up, they might be a little hesitant to outside connections. But I imagine if someone's vetted and we talk with either the right faculty or our team can vouch for somebody, probably don't see any issue around that.
Okay. Great. Very good. Well, thank you so much for really giving us an excellent in-depth understanding of the strategy in terms of moving, as you've got displayed here, throughout your service region, connecting with the various students at the very earliest of their entrepreneurial ventures or ideas, and forming a strategy around organizing them into the entrepreneurship clubs, and then all of the education and training, coaching, guidance, connections that you're making with them at the various earliest ages. We appreciate understanding what it took to make this happen and that you continue to do. So as far as this particular strategy and the way in which you have handled it in terms of your initiatives, your timeline, et cetera, we look forward to eventually you'll share with us some outstanding results and some great success stories that come from. So
that's the goal.
Thank you so much. All right. You know me and those
Lisa.
metrics. I'm all over it. Thank you so much, Garrett. All right. We are going to wrap it up here. I'll remind you again that we will send you the presentation. We'll share it on Slack. We will also post it to our library. I've got a few dates just to run by everyone so you can be sure that these are on your calendar. There we go. So just to mention that every Wednesday, Sprocket in our Western region in Paducah has their Sprocket Coffee Hour. You are welcome to join them at 8 a.m. Central Time over at Sprocket. Blue North is hosting a Bring Your Own Entrepreneur event. This is on Friday, May 30th. It'll be at Carmelo's Restaurant. And so that'll be a great gathering of entrepreneurs there hosted by Blue North. If you're not aware, the Global Entrepreneurship Congress, which is affiliated with Global Entrepreneurship Week, is going to be in the US, and it is going to be held in Indianapolis over several days, June 2nd to the 5th. So if you are interested in traveling just 2 hours, basically for everyone, 2 to 3 hours north of us, the Global Entrepreneurship Congress is happening in early June. Amplify will be hosting their monthly Venture Connectors on June 4th over at the Kentucky Science Center. They always have a great program speaker. And SOAR is going to be concluding their Startup Appalachia Accelerator program with a Founders Weekend. That'll be Friday and Saturday, June 6th and 7th at the Delta Hotel. That'll be up in Ashland. That'll be a nice end to their very rigorous accelerator program over the last 10 weeks. And then finally, this particular series, we will again meet same time, virtual 10 a.m., June 17th. Just want to be sure that you've got that information. I think there's no other questions that I see in the chat. So with that, thank you all for joining us. You've got a few minutes back in your schedule. Hopefully the rain will subside. We're thinking of our friends down in London who had some pretty severe weather. We are thinking of all of you, and we'll see you right back here next month. Thanks, everyone.